You see projects like these and you think, damn, I wish I knew enough AI to build something like that myself. A system that actually does something interesting in the real world. And that dream is exactly where a lot of people start. The problem is not motivation, the problem is direction. Most people jump between random tutorials, random videos, random repos, and after weeks of learning AI, they still do not feel like they truly understand how any of it works. So in this video, I want to give you something much more useful than random recommendations. I want to give you a roadmap. These are 4 books that can take you from the fundamentals of AI to how models learn, to how transformers and LLMs work, and finally to how real AI systems are actually built. These books will teach you the mathematical tools you need, show you how AI can learn through trial and error, introduce you to transformers, and then bring you into the world of modern LLM engineering. So, this is not just a list of books. This is a path from I want to build cool AI projects, I actually know what I am doing. Let's get into it. A lot of people ask, where should I start in AI and what should I learn next? And honestly, I think the best strategy is this. Learn the fundamentals as fast as possible. Then pick a project you genuinely care about and keep learning through building it. That combination is powerful because if you only stay in theory, you never build momentum. But if you jump straight into projects with no foundation, you get lost very quickly. You need enough fundamentals to understand what tools exist, what methods make sense, and how AI systems actually work. Otherwise, every project becomes frustrating, confusing, and demotivating. Then comes the second challenge, choosing the right project. Pick something too difficult and you risk getting stuck early. Pick something too easy and you will not grow much from it. So the goal is to find the sweet spot, a project that pushes you, teaches you new things, and forces you to refine your knowledge without crushing your motivation. And that is exactly why these 4 books work so well together. They give you the first part of that journey, the foundation. The books are: first, deep learning; second, deep reinforcement learning in action; third, natural language processing with transformers; fourth, LLM engineer's handbook. Each one adds a new layer, so let's go through them one by one. The first book is Deep Learning. This is your foundation. If you want to understand AI seriously, not just libraries blindly, this is where you begin. This book teaches you the core ideas behind modern AI: neural networks, backpropagation, optimization, regularization, and representation learning. In other words, it teaches you what deep learning is actually doing under the hood. And that matters a lot. Because a lot of people can import PyTorch, train a model, and say they are doing AI. But when something breaks, or when they need to improve a model, they do not have the intuition to reason about what is happening. This book gives you that intuition. What I really like about this book is the structure. The first part covers the mathematical foundations, and in my opinion, that section is a must-read from beginning to end. It helps you build the language of AI, linear algebra, probability, optimization, and the kind of mathematical thinking you need. The second part is also essential. This is where the real deep learning fundamentals are built, and it gives you the conceptual backbone for almost everything that comes later. The third part is different. It is still valuable, but it is more research oriented. So you do not necessarily need to read every page of it right away. It works very well as a section you come back to later, depending on your interests and projects. And honestly, That is one of the best things about this book. It is not just a book you read once. It becomes a reference you return to whenever you want to refresh your understanding. I will be honest with you, this is probably the densest book on this list. It is not the easiest read, but that is exactly why it is so valuable. This book takes you from being someone who copies AI code to someone who actually understands why it works. So, if the goal is to build real AI projects one day, this is where your mental model starts. Once you understand how deep learning models learn patterns, the next natural question is, what about systems that do not just predict but act? That leads us to the second book. The second book is Deep Reinforcement Learning in Action. This is where AI starts feeling alive because reinforcement learning is about something deeper than classification or prediction. It is about an agent interacting with an environment, making decisions, receiving feedback, and gradually getting better through experience. That is why reinforcement learning is one of the most fascinating areas in AI. It is the kind of thinking behind game-playing agents, robotics, autonomous decision making, in systems that learn behavior instead of just learning patterns from static data. What makes this book strong is that it is both conceptual and practical. It does not just tell you what reinforcement learning is. It helps you understand how it is implemented. The book is mainly split into two major parts. The first part is the foundation, and this section really deserves careful reading. It introduces the core logic of deep reinforcement learning, and without that base, the advanced material will feel disconnected. The second part covers a range of more advanced and interesting topics. And the nice thing is that it progresses from more accessible ideas to harder ones. So, while you can jump into the topics that interested you most, I still think this book is best read as progressively as possible, especially at first. This book matters because it changes the way you think about intelligence. The first book teaches you how models learn patterns. This one teaches you the agents learn behavior, and that is a big shift. It opens the door to thinking about planning, adaptation, feedback, and interaction, which are all central ideas if you want to build more dynamic AI systems.
So now you have two layers. First, how neural networks learn. Second, how agents can learn through interaction. But today, when most people think about AI, they are really thinking about language models. And that brings us to the third book. The third book is Natural Language Processing with Transformers. This is where your learning path enters the modern AI era. Transformers changed NLP, and in many ways they changed AI as a whole. They are the reason systems like ChatGPT and other large language models became possible. What makes this book so valuable is that it is not just theoretical and it is not just high level hype either. It gives you a practical understanding of how transformers work and how they are used. One of the best parts of this book is that you actually get to build a transformer from scratch. That is a huge advantage because it stops the architecture from feeling like a black box. You begin to understand how the pieces fit together and why transformers became so powerful. And the book has an especially strong chapter 10, which explains in details how to train a transformer from scratch. That is a big step because it takes you beyond simply loading pre-trained models and show you what it really means to create and train one. Another major strength of the book is that it introduces you to the Hugging Face ecosystem, which is one of the most important tool sets in modern NLP. You learn libraries that make it practical to load models, fine-tune them, evaluate them, and apply them to real tasks. So the book gives you both sides, the inside view of how transformers work and the practical tooling used in the real world. It also shows you how transformers are applied to core NLP tasks. You see how they can classify text, summarize long documents, answer questions from context, translate between languages, identify important entities like people, places, and organizations inside text. And that is important because this book acts like a bridge. It takes you from I understand neural networks to I understand the architecture behind modern AI. So, if your goal includes assistants, chatbots, text tools, or LLMs, this is one of the most important steps in the roadmap. At this point, you are no longer just learning AI in the abstract. You understand foundations, you understand interactive learning, and you understand transformers. The final step is learning how these models became actual products. The fourth book is LLM Engineer's Handbook. This is where you move from understanding models to engineering systems, and that difference is huge. A lot of people know what an LLM is. Far fewer people know how to build a useful, reliable LLM product. That is what this book is about. And honestly, this is a book that should be read cover to cover, because unlike a book that mainly works as a reference, this one is really about understanding the full pipeline of building LLM systems in practice. The topics connect to each other, so reading it sequentially gives you a much stronger sense of how real systems come together. It covers prompting, which is about communicating with language models effectively so you can guide them toward better outputs. It explains retrieval augmented generation, RAG, where the model is connected to external knowledge so it can answer with relevant information instead of relying only on what is stored in its parameters. It covers evaluation, which is critical because in real engineering, it is not enough for a system to work once. You need to know whether it works reliably, consistently, and under the kinds of conditions that matter. It also deals with hallucination reduction, which is one of the biggest challenges in LLM applications, because fluency is not enough. A useful system also needs to be trustworthy. Then the book expands into agents and orchestration, which means going beyond simple prompt response interactions and understanding how models can use tools, memory, workflows, and external systems. And finally, it pushes you into the real engineering side, deployment, monitoring, and production design. That is the point where you stop thinking only about demos and start thinking about systems that can survive in the real world. So while the earlier books help you understand the science and modeling side of AI, this one teaches you how to build modern AI applications that are actually usable. That is why it is the perfect final book in this roadmap. What makes these 4 books powerful is not just that each one is good individually, it is that together they form a progression. Deep learning gives you the foundation. Deep reinforcement learning in action teaches you how AI can learn to act. Natural language processing with transformers brings you into the transformer era. LLM Engineer's Handbook shows you how to build modern AI systems in practice. So this is not just a book list, it is a roadmap from fundamentals, agents, transformers to real-world LLM engineering. And that roadmap connects very well with the learning strategy I mentioned earlier. Learn the fundamentals first, then choose a project that excites you. Then keep learning by building. That is how the knowledge stops being abstract. That is how it becomes skill. One important thing though, no book by itself will make you great at AI. The real transformation happens when you combine reading with practice. So do not read these books passively. Take notes, implement ideas, rebuild examples, break things, fix them, try your own variations. That is where real learning happens. And when you choose your project, be smart about the level of difficulty. If it feels too easy, make it more ambitious. If it feels too hard, simplify it. You want a project that pushes you forward without killing your momentum. Do that, and these books will not just give you knowledge, they will give you direction. So that is my roadmap. 4 books that can take you from the fundamentals of AI all the way to modern LLM systems. If you found this helpful, subscribe, and in the comments tell me which of these 4 books you like the most. Thanks for watching.